you have to be thinking like, well, even if okay, Coinbase is in the U.S., but they're not going to suddenly launch in Australia, China, and Latin America. So like, if we're going to help this remittance network, if we're going to help this just payment network get off the ground, suddenly there needs to be more of that type of business. And so that's why that's been happening. We're also excited about infrastructure. So Bitcoin itself is fragile in some ways, and like there's scaling issues a little bit, some are everywhere. And so what's really exciting, and I do believe that a lot of people need to start putting more money towards building the Bitcoin protocol itself.
Yep.
I think every company that has the money should be putting a little money towards a developer that can work on the Bitcoin open source protocol. But we are also backing infrastructure companies. So there's a company called BlockCypher that's in this session that is creating APIs for Bitcoin companies, basically making it like plug and play Bitcoin company to start a Bitcoin company, create wallets, multi-sig, webhooks, lots of things like that. And so that's a really exciting space. If I were to go into the API space, I would probably find one thing that is not in existence that's really, really needed, and build it and make it very, very good so that you can own a little segment and then grow outward from there. For those people who are thinking about starting sort of software infrastructure for Bitcoin, I would find like what one problem is and make it be able to scale up a little bit. BlockCypher recently solved the 10-minute transaction time problem, or at least upped the percentage. Like, they created a way in which you can, with 99% certainty in 10 seconds, know whether or not the transaction goes through.
Right, and so for everyone watching, the problem there before that was that it takes like 10 minutes to confirm the transaction.
In the blockchain. Yes.
Right, and so if you're like, imagine going to the store and spending something, buying something with Bitcoin, and they're like, okay, please wait here for 10 minutes so we can confirm that your Bitcoin actually went through.
Yes.
And that, like, nobody's going to do that ever.
Yeah.
So BlockCypher just figured out how to
they
solve
solved it and in a very short period of time, they can clear, with a percentage of certainty, they can clear it.
Like 99.99.
99.99999.
Right.
And it's a really great piece of technology, and that's a very exciting space. There's also infrastructure on the mining side, so I don't want this to be a big plug. I'm trying to use these examples to highlight different types of companies that can be in the ecosystem. And we have a company called HashRabbit that is trying to create the operating system for mining systems. Not trying, they've built it. But miners are like the core infrastructure layer for all of Bitcoin. And a lot of people trivialize this a little bit. Like, it's really important that mining works for the entire ecosystem, and it isn't like the mining companies should only have to deal with the hardware aspect of it, and then someone needs to come in and standardize everything else. And so that's what HashRabbit is trying to do. They're trying to standardize all the software that all the miners use, and it's a really important piece of the ecosystem to make sure that vulnerabilities aren't there, all that stuff isn't there. So then security is really, really important. All these companies are essentially financial companies.
Yep.
And we need the best possible security. They need to like start with a small amount of money, and they also need bank grade institutional security, which is sort of a problem. So we've been finding a couple companies that are in that space. Crowdcurity is helping. That is helping user generated bug bounty programs.
Yep.
And so security is really, really important. If you come up with, the Cloudflare of Bitcoin, the VeriSign of Bitcoin, that sort of thing, we're really excited about that industry. But so that's sort of the present day stuff. And I know I went all over the place, but that's like we're seeing a lot of that type of business. Payment processors all the way down. And then gambling is actually the most used use case, but we backed Arbiter, which is it enables gambling in apps with Bitcoin, with actually other types of currencies also. But generally that's been, and that's a very venture backable business, but generally gambling websites are not as venture backable because they're all very similar. And but it is a big use case. It helps a lot of transactions happen. As far as the future goes, I'm really, really excited. I think that there is this there needs to be this spreading of Bitcoin as a payment network across the world. So we need all these gateways such as Coinbase, CoinMotion in Europe, Bitpagos Argentina, Volabit in Mexico, Palarin in Philippines, CoinHako in Singapore. We need all of this infrastructure of a payment network, payment gateways created,
right,
so that we can create the real first use case for Bitcoin. From there, I think there will be a lot more things built on top of it. It's also, Bitcoin's really, really great for the unbanked because suddenly it brings their infrastructure up to what the U.S. is like the worst place that Bitcoin could have taken off because we're 93% digital already. We trust our banks. Like, there are a lot of things that are good about the United States financial infrastructure. There are probably some bad things too, but there are a lot of good things. In Nigeria, they're like 10% banked or something like that, and that means they don't trust their banks. They're all nationalized. There are a lot of problems in that space.
Well, they can't even build up wealth.
Yeah, they can't even build up wealth to do it.
To do anything.
And the money they're all storing in their mattresses, and so, but they all have cell phones.
Right.
And suddenly, with this mobile boom that's happened across the world, with Bitcoin, you can enable payments everywhere. And that's a very exciting thing. And so we're looking at the payment side as sort of the first use case for Bitcoin. Second generation, and that needs to happen for second generation to really work. Like, you need a mass adoption. You need people to be really excited about this payment space. The next level is really smart contracts on the blockchain. So blockchain technology is the true innovation in Bitcoin. And they solved the Byzantine generals problem, which is how do you make a trusted transaction happen between two non-trusted parties,
right,
without a third party. So right now, if I want to buy your shirt off you, which I do, I would have to use Visa. I would have to use a bank.
This costs 10 Bitcoins, by the way.
Let's see here. 2 years ago, it would have been a $200 shirt or something like that. Now it's a $5,000
really
shirt.
expensive.
Really expensive shirt. I would have to use third parties like Visa, the bank, Wells Fargo, or whatever bank you're using. Now with Bitcoin, it actually clears. So all you use is technology. Technology assesses the transaction goes through, which is really exciting. That's the exciting part. And you can start to log other things than just money or value in the blockchain. You can start to log, or things of value. So you can start to log, real estate leases, make sure that you can automate contracts so that everything that is in the contract, if there's a trigger event, like, happens, like all the money gets distributed. Suddenly, like, the legal system is more efficient. And all of these terms were in the contract, so it just happens. There's no like fudging anything.
So like if like a company could use a smart contract on the blockchain so that when they got acquired, that would be the trigger event, and then all the money could go to their investors.
Yes, and that's a really exciting way that the venture capital industry can start to use Bitcoin.
Because you'd get your money way faster.
Way faster. Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
Well, they'd get their money from me also way faster, probably.
Right.
If they just like clicked, okay, I agree these terms, and then like we fund them with Bitcoin. Or
that would be cool.
Yeah,
because that could be the trigger event.
Yeah, that could be one of the trigger events.
So smart contracts.
And smart contracts, and then so I do think that's sort of second generation stuff. And we do have essentially a smart contract company in this batch called Hedgy that's helping you be able to hedge on Bitcoin, which is a very exciting concept, and they're basically using the blockchain to do it. So that's a pretty exciting thing. There are a lot of companies that are in that trying to enter into that space. I haven't seen any other than really Hedgy and Varum who have made any real headway.
So do you think that people, like a company's going to come along and they're going to provide like a tremendous amount of different smart contracts, or do you think it's going to be very, very focused?
Focused. I think the only way that you can penetrate the market is you say, we do venture capital smart contracts.
Right.
And then you like make the best venture capital smart contracts. And then and you make it like work exactly how the VC industry works already, and then make it a little more efficient later. And the VC industry will say thank you because a lot of our fees come from lawyers. Right. But Yes, that I think you need to be industry focused. I also have a philosophy on focus that if you're starting a company, you really need to own something. Like we ended up owning Bitcoin, and that ended up being able to broaden our horizons to other types of companies.
Right.
But we are known for Bitcoin, which brings people to us, which is a very exciting thing. I think other industries, other companies, one of the things I always harp on in all of our companies here is that focus is the most important thing, where you should narrow your focus as much as you possibly can, own it, find a like small number of users who really, really loves this product, and then broaden it from that point. So that's sort of our thing.
So if anybody watching is actually working at a smart contract company for the blockchain, or they're going to,
yes,
and they want to join the Harvard but not Harvard of Bitcoin.
Exactly.
Exactly. How and they could use some investment, and they could use a network of a lot of Bitcoin people.
Yeah, email me at adam@boost.vc.
There you go. Yeah. Email Adam. Get into Boost.
Yeah, perfect.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for helping us with the Bitcoin course. It's been super interesting getting your perspective from because as an investor, I think you're looking at this differently than like an engineer is, or someone that's just starting up a company. And so I think it's super useful, especially like the future of Bitcoin, and kind of talking about how once we get all the different countries set up with their individual exchanges, how then the world, basically, we can send money anywhere, and we're not going to be losing percentages. Yeah,
I do have to look at it, like as an investor, we have to look at it on a broad scale. We can't get we have to look at each individual thing and see how it looks at on the big picture level. And what I'm seeing that Bitcoin is, so Bitcoin really, everyone overcomplicates Bitcoin a little bit, because in the end, the consumer is the one who interacts with it, and it's pretty easy. It's a payment method right now, and there are some cool things that you can do with the technology. But really what it is it made fintech sexy.
Yeah.
Like suddenly we tricked all the best engineers in the world, and I don't mean tricked in a bad way, but like into working on financial technology financial fintech companies. Suddenly there are companies that are starting like AML, anti-money laundering, and know your customer technology, so that they can help the Bitcoin ecosystem. Anti-money laundering and know your customer is like relatively, boring and
not sexy.
And suddenly they're working on it because they know that they will be able to help Bitcoin companies.
Yeah,
that's a very exciting thing. Fraud prevention, being able forensics in the blockchain, like all these. There's tons of cool infrastructure for financial technology that's suddenly being upgraded.
Right. It's like finance.
Yeah.
Not sexy. Finance plus Bitcoin.
Super
exciting.
And that's basically all that everyone's doing is they're all updating financial technology, and that's super exciting.
It's like we can go beat Wall Street now.
Yes, that's basically, or join Wall Street. Like they have a very good financial hub over there. But yes,
they can join us.
Yeah, they can join the revolution that is Bitcoin financial technology stuff. And I think in 3 years, one of the reasons that I made the claim 7 months ago or something that in 3 years we'll do 100 Bitcoin companies, and there were barely 100 Bitcoin companies at that time. But in 3 years, it's not going to be like you're starting a Bitcoin company. It's going to be you're starting a financial technology company, and then we assume you use Bitcoin because otherwise it doesn't.
What are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing? Like when the internet started, everyone was starting an internet company. And then when it evolved, it was just we're starting a technology company, and if you're not using the internet, I don't know what you've been doing the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Like that. No one says I'm starting an internet company now. That like dates them to the 1990s.
It's like if you built a house and you didn't put electricity in it.
Yes, it's a utility, and I believe Bitcoin is a similar utility, but for the financial markets.
Right.
Yes.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
That's the most important part of this, by the way. Like, make sure that you watch till the end. Great.
Now we can say bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.